You have a few months left, the doctor said, covering the file with the palm of his hand. Eleanor Sullivan did not immediately process what she had just heard. Beyond the window hovered a rainy April afternoon in Pittsburgh, and the man in the white coat spoke of her death with as much calm as if he were announcing the time of her next appointment. Dr. Richard Sterling, a 55-year-old oncologist with a heavy jaw and graying hair, took off his glasses. Exactly how much time? Eleanor asked. 4 to 6 months. Sometimes it is more. If the body responds to the treatment, however, you cannot count on it. The tall 46-year-old woman, with dark shoulder-length hair and gray eyes, was used to hearing unpleasant reports without making unnecessary movements. At that moment, she wanted to grip the edge of the desk, but her hands remained on her knees. Are you sure? Sterling opened the folder and turned the medical report toward her. The biopsy confirmed a malignant tumor. The tumor was located in a complicated area. The metastatic process had already begun. Surgery at this stage would not yield results. The lines blurred. Eleanor made out her last name, her date of birth, the clinic's letterhead. Further down were words she had previously only encountered in other people's stories. Why didn't I feel anything? Such an illness develops quietly for a long time. Weakness, loss of appetite, heaviness after eating. A person usually attributes it to fatigue. You work a lot, almost constantly. So, it is not surprising that the early symptoms went unnoticed. 2 weeks ago, Harrison had insisted on a full checkup after noticing her pale complexion, her insomnia, and her discomfort after meals. Eleanor had brushed it off, but her husband enrolled her in this private clinic himself. Now, his concern seemed like a final gift before the end. What can be done? She asked. The doctor paused. There is an experimental program at a foreign clinic in Switzerland. It does not promise a cure, but sometimes it prolongs life for a year or two. The treatment is expensive. The decision will have to be made quickly. Richard Sterling mentioned the amount in dollars. For that money, she could replace 2 manufacturing lines. The factory did not have liquid funds of that magnitude readily available. I need to think about it. Of course, just do not delay. Here, time is counted in weeks. He handed her an envelope with copies of the documents and a sheet of prescriptions. Your husband knows, correct? The doctor frowned. You need support. I will tell my husband myself. Eleanor put the papers in her purse. And if I want a second opinion to verify the diagnosis, a barely perceptible tension crossed the doctor's face, but he quickly recovered his previous expression. You have that right. It is just that a second biopsy will take time and create an unnecessary physical burden. The report was prepared by a prestigious laboratory. Errors there are practically out of the question. In the hallway, Eleanor stopped by the window. Below, people were hurrying toward their cars. No one knew. The woman on the 4th floor had just received the date of her own disappearance. Her cell phone buzzed. Her husband's names flashed on the screen. She did not answer. A minute later, a text message arrived. How did the checkup go? Call me when you are done. In the elevator, a boy of about 5 was throwing a paper airplane between the mirrored walls. Eleanor looked away because she suddenly felt the urge to cry. Out on the street, she got into her car and took a long time to start the engine. Before her eyes appeared the factory, red brick, a tall smokestack. The sign bore her father's name. Arthur Sullivan had started with a small workshop. After his death, the company passed to his daughter. In 12 years, she had pulled the manufacturing plant out of debt and saved 180 local jobs. Now all those people would have to find out that the owner was going to die soon. Eleanor turned the key. First, she would review the accounts, prepare a successor, and put the legal documents in order. For now, she would not tell Harrison anything. Any misfortune made him pace around and make decisions for others. She needed at least one night without anyone else's pity. She arrived at the factory as just past noon. At the security gate, the guard informed her that the motor on the 3rd assembly line had stopped. Tell Mike Kowalski. I will be there in 10 minutes. She crossed the factory floor, greeting the workers. From the open loading docks came the smell of wet clay. In a few months, the trucks would still be arriving to pick up the ceramic tiles. The foreman would still be arguing about defective batches, only she would no longer be there. In the office, her secretary, Martha, poured her some coffee and left a folder on the desk. Harrison called. He asked me to remind you about the dinner at the Hendersons' house. Cancel it. Tell him I am not feeling well. Eleanor took off her coat. Tell him there is a breakdown on the production line. Martha, a stout 50-year-old woman with brown hair and dark eyes, stopped by the door. Are you truly feeling unwell? I just did not sleep much. Then at least eat something later. See you this afternoon. Eleanor supervised the motor repair and coordinated the delivery of the glaze. Only once, while signing a purchase order, did she notice the date and catch herself calculating if she would still be alive by the end of the year. At 5:00, Mike Kowalski, a broad-shouldered man with a weathered face and thinning blonde hair, visited the office. It is up and running. The bearing was destroyed. Tomorrow we will have to stop the line for 2 hours. We will inspect the entire unit, coordinate it with the sales department, move the urgent batches to the second kiln. He nodded, then looked at her more closely. Go home. We will keep everything under control today. Normally, Eleanor would have stayed until the end of the shift. However, at that moment the collar of her blouse would not let her breathe. All right, call me if there is any problem. She grabbed her purse and went to her car. The envelope with the diagnosis lay between her planner and her wallet, as if it were just another business document. Harrison was supposed to return after 7. Eleanor planned to take a shower, hide the papers, and figure out how to get through the evening. However, her husband's car was already parked in the driveway. Silence reigned in the house. She took off her shoes, hung up her coat, and was about to call out to Harrison when his voice drifted from the home office. I said she bought it. He was speaking quietly, but he had left the door slightly ajar. Eleanor froze in the hallway. No, Chloe. We cannot push her today. Let her process it. Tomorrow she will tell me about the diagnosis herself, and then I will play the worried husband. Eleanor felt a tightness in her chest. She slowly placed her purse on the floor. Harrison let out a laugh. The stupid woman believed his diagnosis, so everything is going according to plan. Sterling made it very convincing. He has such an authoritative tone that she will even end up thanking the doctor. Eleanor rested her palm against the wall. The wallpaper under her fingers felt cold. Then she took out her phone and turned on the voice recorder. The main thing is to make sure it does not occur to her to go to another hospital. Her husband continued. I will explain that there is no time. I will tell her to choose between the factory and her life. She will choose her life. Through the phone, a woman's voice could be heard. The words were indistinguishable. The buyer is ready, Harrison replied. Your firm will buy the plot at the necessary price. Then we will flip the land to the commercial developer, and the money from her fake treatment will go directly into our offshore account. In a month, she will be left without the company and without access to the funds. Eleanor closed her eyes behind the door. The man she had lived with for 15 years was almost gleefully discussing her ruin. After the signing, we will take the documents, he added. If she starts to suspect anything, it will be too late. Sterling will prescribe her some heavy medication. With those pills, she will be drowsy and will stop asking questions. Chloe said something else. My love, have a little patience. Soon it will all be ours. Do not call me tonight. She might see it. I will see you tomorrow at your place. Yes, I love you too. The conversation ended. Eleanor picked up her purse without making a sound, stepped out onto the porch, closed the front door carefully, and walked down the driveway. Only there did she allow herself to breathe. Her first thought was to go back in, throw the office door wide open, and demand an explanation. But Harrison would surely deny everything. He would claim the conversation was a joke and alert his accomplices. The documents would disappear. The shell company would change hands. The doctor would alter the medical records. She walked quickly to her car and played back the recording. The sentences were quiet, but the words about the factory, the doctor, and the shell company were clearly distinguishable. Then she took out the medical envelope and looked at the report. Her last name, Sterling's signature, the fatal diagnosis. It was all part of a theatrical performance. Tears suddenly welled up. She let them flow until the trembling subsided. Then she took out some tissues, fixed her makeup, and looked at herself in the rearview mirror. She was not the one who was going to die. Harrison was going to bury his own freedom and his hope for easy money. Eleanor started the engine, drove around the block, and stopped at a local grocery store. She bought bread, cheese, a box of her husband's favorite chocolates, and waited another 20 minutes. She entered the house making noise, rattled the lock, brushed the grocery bag against the hall table, and called out from the entryway, "Harrison, are you home yet?" He appeared almost immediately. He was a tall 49-year-old man with dark blonde hair and graying temples. He looked concerned. On his wrist gleamed the watch his wife had given him. "Why are you home so early?" There was a breakdown on the line. "We resolved it faster than expected." Her husband gave her a kiss on the cheek. "You have been crying, the wind. How was your meeting? Tell me what the checkup showed." Eleanor went into the kitchen and began putting away the groceries, buying a few seconds. "Harrison, sit down." He dropped slowly into the chair. "What happened?" She placed the envelope in front of him. "I have cancer." On her husband's face appeared shock, disbelief, pain, a desperate attempt to regain his composure. He was acting very convincingly. "No," Harrison whispered. "They made a mistake. The biopsy confirmed it." He jumped up, pressed his wife against his chest, and buried his face in her hair. "We will run more tests. We will find the best doctors. I am not going to lose you. Do you hear me?" Eleanor stood completely still, smelling his cologne. Sterling said, "There is very little time. What does he suggest?" "An experimental treatment abroad." She mentioned the dollar amount. Harrison pulled back and took her by the shoulders. "We will find the money." "From where?" "We will sell whatever it takes. Our savings and investment accounts will not be enough." Her husband looked away as if the idea had just occurred to him. "We have the factory." Eleanor remained silent. "I understand it is tied to your father's memory," he continued. "But the company cannot be placed above your life. The land is worth a fortune. If we act quickly, we will find a buyer, and the workers will receive severance packages. You have no obligation to die to save jobs." She sat down across from him. "I am not ready to decide yet." Harrison covered her hand with his. "Of course, tonight we will forget about the paperwork. Tomorrow I will call Sterling myself. I will clarify everything about the clinic. You must not get upset." Eleanor looked at his fingers. Not long ago he had held his phone with them and promised his mistress someone else's property. "I want to go to bed," she said. "I will bring you some tea in the bedroom." Eleanor closed the door and took her cell phone out of her purse. The recording was saved. She forwarded the audio file to her work email and uploaded a copy to the cloud. Then she opened her contact list and searched for Sarah Jenkins. The corporate attorney handled the facto's major transactions. Eleanor typed, "Meet me at my factory tomorrow at 7 in the morning. Do not tell anyone. It is regarding an attempted hostile takeover of the company and a forged medical diagnosis." The reply came within a minute. "I will be there." Footsteps sounded outside the door. Eleanor hid the phone under her pillow and lay down. Harrison entered with a mug. "Drink this. You will feel better." She accepted the tea but did not take a single sip. Her husband sat next to her and stroked her hair. "We will get through this, I swear it." Eleanor looked at his face, and for the first time noticed how carefully he avoided her gaze. "Then tomorrow we will start preparing the documents," she said softly. "I will sell the factory." Harrison held his breath for a moment, then hugged his wife again. "You have made the right decision." She rested her head on his shoulder and closed her eyes. Beyond the wall, the clock ticked. In the kitchen, dinner was getting cold. In her purse lay the fabricated diagnosis. A minute later, her husband left to take the mug to the kitchen. Eleanor smiled in such a way that her husband could not see her and whispered barely audibly, "You will remember my lesson for the rest of your life." At 7 in the morning, attorney Sarah Jenkins entered Eleanor's office without knocking and closed the door. Sarah was 48. She was short, slender, with short blonde hair. She rarely raised her voice. "Show me," the lawyer said. Eleanor played the recording and placed the phone between them. Harrison was speaking quietly. However, the doctor's name, the mentions of Chloe, the sales plan, and the words about the fake treatment were heard quite clearly. Sarah listened to the file twice and then opened the medical envelope. You have the originals. Everything Sterling gave me. Did you open the patient portal on the internet? No. When I registered, Harrison gave his email address. He explained that it would be easier for him to track the prescriptions that way. Sarah looked up. That means your husband had access to the results beforehand. Do not change anything for now. Let him believe he controls every message from the clinic. A recording is not enough. The conversation confirms the intent, but the defense could claim it is doctored, or that it was just a marital dispute. We will need an independent medical examination. We need the medical records and proof of the connection between those involved. If I am healthy, how did they fabricate the pathology report? Could they have swapped the sample, used someone else's results, or entered fake data into my file? We are not going to guess. Sarah took out a legal pad. The factory belongs solely to you. My father transferred the company to me before I got married. The land is also in my name. Harrison has a power of attorney. He manages routine payments as the financial director. He cannot sell the assets without my signature. Let him hurry. Let him bring the buyer and reveal his plan. Do not sign anything without me. Eleanor walked over to the window. Yesterday, I promised him I would sell the factory. A promise does not transfer property rights. He will want you to stop working, to fake weakness, but do not let him isolate you. And regarding the medication your husband or Sterling brings, keep the packaging. Harrison will be here at 10:00. Eleanor said. I will have time to leave before then. Sarah handed her a piece of paper with the address for Steel City Memorial Hospital. They are expecting you for an urgent consultation. No one has promised the desired outcome. The doctor will study everything on her own. 20 minutes later, Eleanor left the company. She informed Martha that she was going for additional blood work and would return after lunch. At the public hospital, they asked for her driver's license, insurance card, and medical records. The receptionist verified the data and then frowned. Do you have the disc with the imaging scans? They did not give it to me. Request a copy. The patient has the right to receive the results of their tests. The chief of oncology, Dr. Emily Carter, a 60-year-old woman wearing thin wire-rimmed glasses, read the report carefully. What symptoms are you experiencing? Heaviness after eating, insomnia, sometimes weakness. Has your weight changed? Hardly at all. Yellowing skin, pain radiating to your back, fever? None of that. Dr. Carter examined the patient and then returned to the paperwork. According to the description, this is an advanced stage. With such a level of spread, obvious symptoms usually appear, although there are exceptions. Where was the biopsy performed? At a private clinic. They did an endoscopy under sedation. Sterling said they took the tissue then. Why is the surgical protocol missing? Eleanor checked the sheets. I thought it was among the documents. Only the pathology report is here. The method of obtaining the sample, the name of the specialist, and the container number are missing. The doctor assured me that a second biopsy would rob me of my final weeks of life. Dr. Carter took off her glasses. For now, I see no reason to speak of final weeks. First, we will verify the facts. She wrote out an order for lab work, an ultrasound, and a CT scan with contrast. You must request the original tissue blocks for review. Submit a written request in duplicate. Demand a date stamp on your copy. They might refuse. They have no legal basis to do so. The medical institution is required by law to provide the patient with copies of their file and the material for a secondary consultation. Before noon, Eleanor had her blood drawn and underwent an ultrasound. Did you find anything? She asked. Your doctor will communicate the results after drafting the report. Harrison called at 11. Where are you? At the hospital. Sterling ordered me to get additional tests done. Why didn't you tell me? I would have gone with you. You had a conference call with the suppliers this morning. I would cancel any meeting for you. Sterling already called. He is willing to see us this afternoon and explain the overseas program. All right. Then we will go home. You need to rest. I am going back to the factory. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What for? Yesterday you agreed to sell the company. Exactly. That is why the documents need to be prepared. Do not discuss the diagnosis with the employees. We should not cause a panic before everyone finds out. Harrison softened his voice. Eleanor, I will take care of everything now. Thank you. After the call, Eleanor texted Sarah that the testing was continuing. The response came quickly. Do not sign anything this afternoon. The CT scan took place at 2 Mar in the afternoon. The contrast dye caused an intense flush of heat throughout her body. The machine hummed, and the table moved slowly into the ring. The woman lay perfectly still and counted her breaths. 40 minutes later, Dr. Carter called her into the consultation room. The images were pulled up on the monitor. We do not see the malignant tumor indicated in the report. The doctor said the pancreas presents no mass. The liver, lymph nodes, and other organs also show none of the described alterations. Eleanor looked at the screen terrified. She was misunderstanding the words. So, I am healthy. Based on today's data, the terminal diagnosis is not confirmed. There is gastritis and signs of exhaustion. We will draw our final conclusion after the laboratory results and the review of the biopsy, but the paperwork indicates metastasis, so it is necessary to clarify the origin of that document. Carter pushed the printed report toward her. Request a certified copy. Submit a formal request at the private clinic, demanding they release the medical file, the imaging, and the biopsy log corresponding to your examination. In the hallway, Eleanor called her lawyer. There is no tumor. Is it confirmed in writing? Sarah asked. Yes, the biopsy remains to be verified. Do not inform your husband. I will be there in half an hour. They met in a coffee shop across from the hospital. Sarah read the report, slid it into a clear sleeve, and opened her laptop. There is now a severe contradiction between two medical documents, but the method of forgery has not yet been established. I will hand-deliver the formal request to Sterling myself. Go without making a scene. Say that the foreign clinic will need the original materials. That reasoning fits Harrison's plan perfectly. Sarah drafted the text. Eleanor copied it by hand. Can we show the recording to the police now? She asked. First, we must establish a paper trail regarding the origin of the test results. Otherwise, the accomplices will write it off as a technical error. Following the request, they might try to swap the samples. Any obstacle they put up will also serve as evidence. Tonight, Harrison will take you to see Sterling. Ask him who took the samples, where they were analyzed, and why the surgical protocol is missing. Record the conversation if it is safe to do so. At 4:30, Eleanor returned to the factory. Her husband was waiting in her office. On the desk were 3 folders containing the land appraisal, the equipment inventory, and a preliminary calculation of the sale. You moved fast, she commented. Harrison stood up to greet her. We do not have time. I have contacted a commercial real estate broker. Her name is Chloe Preston. She is willing to come by tomorrow. How do you know her? We worked together on the sale of a warehouse a few years ago, he replied without hesitation. She has already found a buyer. An investment group has had their eye on the land for a while. But they are only willing to move if the deal is closed quickly. They are interested in the real estate. They are not even going to inspect the manufacturing floor. Harrison opened the first folder. The amount was 1/3 of the market appraisal Eleanor had commissioned last fall. Why so low? The urgency drives the price down, but you will have the cash in time for the treatment. He touched her elbow. Do not think about bricks and machinery. I want to save you. Eleanor closed her eyes, feigning exhaustion. Have Chloe come in. I knew you would make the most sensible decision. Before the sale, Sarah will review the contract. Her husband's face reflected irritation. Sarah will drag out the process. Lawyers bill by the hour to find doubts. She has defended my interests for years, but now I am the one defending them. Eleanor turned toward him. Then you have nothing to fear from a review. Harrison smiled, but withdrew his hand. Of course, it is just that every delay is dangerous. That evening, they arrived at the private clinic. Sterling met the couple by the elevator. Eleanor, how are you feeling? The weakness has gotten worse. That is to be expected. Come in. In the office, Harrison sat next to her. His knee brushed against his wife's leg, as if reminding her who was in control. Eleanor placed the formal request on the desk. The overseas clinic will request the original materials. Scans, slides, tissue blocks, and the biopsy protocol. I want to pick everything up tomorrow. Sterling froze for a moment. Which clinic? You have not given me the full name yet. I asked an acquaintance to translate the requirements of several different centers. The doctor skimmed the text. The preparation will take time. You said time is working against me. Harrison intervened. Dr. Sterling, please do everything possible. Eleanor has agreed to sell the factory, so the problem of payment is almost resolved. Sterling looked at him. Understood. Register the request at the front desk. You will have a portion of the documents tomorrow. The laboratory materials will be delivered separately. Where was the tissue analyzed? Eleanor asked. At our partner's facility, Apex Clinical Laboratories. Why is the extraction protocol missing? The secretary must have failed to include the page.
A comment.
Who performed the procedure? Sterling ran his hand across the desk. Dr. Delgado. He is currently on vacation. I did not see him. You were under sedation and might not remember. Harrison squeezed his wife's hand. Do not torture yourself with the details. We will have to entrust your life to these people. The oncologist opened a drawer and took out a pill bottle. Take one in the morning and one at night. The medication will reduce your anxiety, restore your sleep, and help you endure the weakness. Eleanor read the label. It has side effects. Drowsiness and delayed reflexes. It says, do not operate a vehicle. Sterling made a note in the chart, tore off the prescription, and handed it to Harrison, even though the patient was sitting closer. On the ground floor, Eleanor registered the request. The receptionist stamped it, dated it, and signed the copy. As the couple stepped out onto the street, her husband took the car keys. I will drive. On the way home, Harrison talked about booking the flight. Eleanor responded in monosyllables. The pills were in her purse right next to the written confirmation that she did not have a deadly tumor. At home, her husband brought her a glass of water. Take the medicine now. I will eat dinner first. I do not want to take it on an empty stomach. Sterling did not mention anything about that. I will check the warning label. Harrison lingered by the table and then went into the bathroom. Eleanor photographed the pill bottle and texted the image to Sarah. Then she hid one pill in a paper napkin and left the others in their place. During the night, she heard her husband get out of bed. A strip of light fell onto the hallway floor. A minute later, the office door clicked shut quietly. Eleanor grabbed her cell phone, walked barefoot down the hall, and stopped behind the wall. Harrison was speaking in whispers. She requested the tissue samples. Yes, she filed the paperwork. Alert the lab not to release anything without your authorization. She listened to the response, yes, yes, then find a replacement. I do not care whose samples they are. The important thing is that the name and the medical record number match up. Eleanor started the voice recorder. Does the real patient know anything? Harrison asked after a pause. Perfect. Let her keep believing she has an ordinary benign cyst. Eleanor's hands turned ice cold. Behind her fabricated diagnosis, there was another woman. That person was walking around completely unaware that her terminal illness along with her test results had been stolen. In the morning, Eleanor woke up feeling a hand touching her cheek. Harrison was sitting beside her, looking at her with a level of concern that now seemed impossible to believe. How are you feeling? Like, I haven't slept all night. The pill worked. Eleanor delayed her response for a few seconds. I do not think I remember much of anything since dinner. A gleam of satisfaction appeared in her husband's eyes. That means the medication is taking effect. You will take another one today. Eleanor sat up slowly, feigning weakness. During the night, she had saved the second recording and sent a copy to Sarah. I have to go to the factory. Chloe is coming at 10. I will handle the meeting myself. The buyer will want to hear the owner's verbal consent. Harrison handed her a robe. Then stay for a little while and I will drive you straight home afterward. While her husband was brewing coffee, Eleanor locked herself in the bathroom and texted Sarah. The lawyer replied immediately. I received the recording. After what we learned about the real patient, we cannot wait. Today, we will file a formal report with the police for medical record tampering and attempted fraud. They haven't sold anything yet. The conspiracy is already evident, and an unknown woman is in grave danger. We will turn over the document copies and the recordings. The police are under no obligation to notify us about the investigation, and if Harrison figures it out, keep playing your part. Eleanor heard footsteps in the hallway. I have to go. At 11, meet me at the title company next to the factory. You will sign the complaint there. You will keep the originals for now. In the kitchen, Harrison placed a coffee mug and the pill bottle in front of his wife. Take it after you eat. Eleanor placed the pill on her tongue and drank some water. When her husband turned toward the coffee maker, she stealthily spat the medication into a napkin. Half an hour later, they arrived at the company. Eleanor got out of the car slower than usual, letting Harrison support her by the elbow. At the security booth, he instructed the guard not to let anyone in without his permission. In the office, her secretary, Martha, asked in alarm, "Should I call a doctor?" "No need. Let me know when Chloe Preston arrives." The secretary left. Harrison lowered the blinds. It is better if the employees do not see you. Rumors will start. Eleanor sank into her armchair and closed her eyes. Her husband opened his laptop. On the spreadsheet for the upcoming transaction, the broker's commission was listed. The amount exceeded the annual salary of her floor manager. Who gets this? Harrison minimized the window. Close brokerage. Expedited services are expensive. That is why I want to know where the money is going. The door opened after a brief knock. Martha announced Chloe Preston has arrived. A 38-year-old blonde woman in a light pantsuit walked in. Her bold lipstick and confident stride revealed her habit of putting a price tag on other people's things. Eleanor, I am so sorry we have to meet under these circumstances, the guest said. Eleanor immediately recognized the voice from the phone conversation with her husband. You are sorry, the factory owner said. Chloe placed a folder on the desk. Harrison has told me just what I needed to know. I will maintain absolute confidentiality. He told you my diagnosis without my permission. The visitor looked momentarily flustered, realizing the urgency of the deal would otherwise seem suspicious. I trust Chloe. Harrison intervened. Let her explain the offer. Chloe showed the plot map. The investors are interested in the parcel. They will most likely shut down production. The machinery can be sold off separately, but a cash buyer closing this fast will offer a low price. Who is this investor? Keystone Property Holdings. Bring me the corporate filings. Here is the state registry and the corporate profile. The LLC had been in existence for less than 5 months, held minimum capital, and used a shared virtual office address. How is a shell company with no assets going to pay for the factory? There are important people backing them. The funding will hit escrow after the letter of intent is signed. Tell me their names. They do not wish to reveal themselves at this stage, so I am supposed to just trust your promise. We will verify everything, Harrison interjected. Eleanor tilted her head back as if she were dizzy. Excuse me, I am having trouble concentrating. Chloe's tone softened instantly. To get started, a letter of intent is enough. Then Sarah will review the text. Chloe glanced sideways at Harrison. Of course, but the investor demanded an answer by this afternoon. Why the rush? They are eyeing another parcel. Eleanor closed the folder. Have the investor provide proof of funds and reveal the ultimate beneficial owners. Until then, I will not sign anything. Harrison walked Chloe out. In the hallway, they began speaking in hushed tones. Eleanor approached the door and turned on her recorder. She is too focused, Chloe whispered. The pills haven't kicked in the way they are supposed to. Sarah will ruin everything. I will cut her out of the deal. I will apply more pressure tonight. The footsteps faded away. A few minutes later, Harrison returned alone. Did you have to treat Chloe like a con artist? I asked her standard business questions. We do not have a month to do due diligence. Try finding a cash buyer who can prove their liquidity in a single day. Her husband clenched his jaw. Yesterday you entrusted me with your salvation, and I still trust you. Harrison immediately changed his tone. Forgive me, I am terrified of losing you. He hugged his wife. Now calculation was evident in his every move. At 11, Eleanor said she wanted to lie down in the break room. Harrison went to the finance department. She slipped down the fire escape stairs and entered the title company office in the adjacent building. Sarah was waiting for her by the window. Eleanor read the police complaint, signed every page, and handed over a flash drive with the audio recordings. We will attach certified copies, Sarah explained. We are also going to the medical board. They will review the patient file, the chain of custody for the samples, and the pill. I sent the packaging to an independent lab. We will know the chemical composition soon. Keep the blister pack and the prescription. Sarah pulled up the corporate registry extract. Now about the buyer. The sole managing member of Keystone Property Holdings is Margaret Preston, Chloe's 69-year-old aunt. The registered agent is a guy who manages 7 other LLCs simultaneously. In other words, it is a front company. It has all the red flags. The final legal assessment will be made by the authorities. What matters to us is something else. 2 months ago, the factory paid Chloe's brokerage a retainer for consulting services. Eleanor looked up. I never approved anything. The payment was authorized by Harrison, staying just under his banking limit. The memo is very vague. Analysis of land investment potential. He used my money to fund the theft of my own company. It looks that way. I have already requested the contract from accounting. Eleanor stared at her husband's signature. He had been planning this for a long time. Upon returning to the factory, Eleanor found Harrison standing by the window. Where were you? I checked the break room and you weren't there. I went out to the courtyard. Martha did not see you. She does not have to track my every step. I was worried. Eleanor touched her temple. I feel worse. Take me home. Of course. Before leaving, she asked Martha to give Sarah all the contracts related to Chloe's firm. The secretary asked no questions. She merely nodded. At home, Harrison tucked his wife into bed and drew the curtains. Sleep. Sterling is coming this evening. He will bring the contract for the foreign center, the treatment cost estimate, and the wire instructions. Everything will be fine. Her husband leaned over, kissed her forehead, and left the room. A few minutes later, the front door chimed. Eleanor got up, checked the window, and called the private clinic. The receptionist informed her that the copies of her medical file were ready, but the slides and blocks were being delayed by the lab. Give me a written response stating the reason for the delay, Eleanor demanded. Those certifications are issued by the medical director. I will transfer you. After a brief hold, Sterling answered. Why are you causing such a scene? The foreign doctors will not begin treatment without reviewing your case file. They will bring the materials tomorrow. Harrison told me you guys wanted an under-the-table fee to expedite the process. Dead silence fell over the line. I never said any such thing. How strange. My husband assured me that without an extra cash payout you would not speed up the delivery. Mrs. Sullivan, do not argue with me over other people's fantasies. Then prepare everything without additional fees, as is your legal obligation. She saved the recording of the call. Sterling called back, but Eleanor did not answer. Then she dialed Chloe's number. I need to clear something up. Harrison wants to put the purchase agreement in his name. Where are you getting that from? He told me that after the treatment, it would be difficult for me to manage my assets, that perhaps I would need to grant him a general power of attorney. Chloe's tone grew much more cautious. Your signature alone is sufficient to close. Then why did my husband ask for my driver's license and our marriage certificate? I do not know. He also told me that after the sale, he would personally divide the money between the treatment and other expenses. Chloe remained silent. I will ask him about it, but do not tell him I called you. Harrison gets nervous when I ask questions. Of course. Eleanor set the phone down on the nightstand. Now the doctor suspected her husband was trying to cut him out of the promised bribe, and Chloe doubted whether she would get her share. At 4, Dr. Carter called, Eleanor, come to the hospital. We received the data regarding the biopsy tracking number. We cannot discuss the details over the phone. It involves another patient. Come down here. At the hospital, they escorted Eleanor to the chief of ONSI's office. On the desk lay Sterling's reports and the response from the lab. The biopsy number does exist, Carter said. However, it is not registered under your name. The laboratory has launched an internal investigation and has notified the referring clinic. Who is the actual patient? I am not authorized to disclose the medical data of third parties. Outside the door, a woman's voice rang out. Explain to me right now why I was called in here. 2 months ago, they told me everything was benign. Dr. Carter stepped out into the hallway for a few minutes. A quarter of an hour later, the door opened. A woman in her 40s, wearing a modest gray coat, walked into the office. She had her dark hair tied back with a scrunchie and carried sickly dark circles under her eyes. Beside her stood a skinny teenager with a backpack. Did you receive my test results? The stranger asked. Carter stopped her. Jessica, I did not phrase it that way. The woman kept her eyes fixed on Eleanor. The doctor told me my tissue sample ended up in someone else's medical file. In other words, hers. Eleanor stood up. My name is Eleanor Sullivan. I was diagnosed with a terminal illness that I do not have. Jessica covered her mouth with her hand, and they told me I had a cyst. I believed it and went home. The teenager turned pale. Mom, what is going on? Dr. Carter asked him to wait with the nurse, but the boy grabbed his mother's sleeve. I am staying. Jessica wrapped her arm around her son's shoulders. This is my Tyler. We don't have anyone else. Eleanor felt her own personal outrage give way to a different emotion entirely. While Harrison was calculating his commission, this woman was losing precious time. Have they scheduled you for scans yet? Eleanor asked. They are going to draw my blood and do a CT scan now. I do not understand how this could have happened. First, we will establish your current health status, Carter replied calmly. The reasons behind the swap samples will be investigated separately. Jessica turned to Eleanor. Who sent you to see that doctor? My husband. He knew. Eleanor did not have time to answer. Her phone buzzed in her purse. A text from Harrison appeared on the screen. Sterling is furious. Chloe is demanding to see us. What exactly did you say to them? Immediately after, another message arrived. I am almost there. I tracked your GPS. Eleanor showed the screen to Sarah, who had just entered the office. The lawyer read the message and said quietly, he has realized he is losing control. Down the hall, the elevator doors chimed open. A few seconds later, Harrison's voice echoed, I am looking for Eleanor Sullivan. I am her husband. Jessica flinched, and Tyler pressed himself against her. Eleanor turned off her phone and looked at Sarah. It is time to see how well he can fake his love in front of witnesses. Harrison appeared in the doorway, breathless, as if afraid of arriving late to hear a confession. Eleanor, what are you doing here? He stopped abruptly upon seeing Jessica, her son, the doctor, and Sarah. I was feeling worse, his wife replied. I came in for some additional tests. Her husband grabbed her hand. I asked you to let me know where you were going. I had to track you on GPS. You weren't answering. Your phone was off. What is Sarah doing here? The attorney stepped forward before Eleanor could open her mouth. I am accompanying my client at her request. Harrison looked at Jessica. And who is this? A patient of this facility, Dr. Carter said. We do not share confidential medical information. Jessica took a sharp breath, ready to speak. However, Eleanor touched her elbow. It was too early to unmask her husband right there in the hospital. If she did, he would immediately warn Sterling and Chloe and then destroy whatever evidence he could. Let's go home, Eleanor requested. I am exhausted. Harrison put his arm around her shoulders and asked the doctor what did the tests reveal. The results have been communicated to the patient. Eleanor will decide who she shares them with. I am her husband. We are fighting for her life together. Then respect her right to medical privacy. In the hallway, Sarah stayed behind for a moment with Jessica to help her fill out some paperwork. By the elevator, her husband asked her, what were you talking about with that woman? She is also waiting for test results. Sarah came for her. Eleanor leaned against the wall. Harrison, my legs are shaking. Are you going to interrogate me right here? He lowered his voice instantly. Forgive me. I got so scared when I saw your location on the GPS. In the car, her husband asked what the doctors had told her. Nothing is certain yet. Eleanor said it with such exhaustion that he stopped asking questions. At home, Harrison escorted her to the bedroom and brought her the pills. Take 2. Sterling authorized me to up your dose. Did you speak with him after we left the hospital? I have to know how to help you. She popped the medication into her mouth and drank some water. Then she turned away. She had managed to tuck the pills inside her cheek. A minute later, Eleanor asked her husband to make her some broth. As soon as the door closed, she spit the pills out and hid them in an empty contact lens case. Until evening, Harrison barely left the bedroom. He took his wife's cell phone away under the pretext that the calls wouldn't let her rest. Eleanor did not argue. Around 7, Sterling arrived. The oncologist walked in carrying a black folder and a brand new box of the drug. How did the consultation go? They drew blood. They did a CT scan. And what did they tell you? They promised to have a report ready. Sterling set his briefcase down next to the armchair. Public hospitals can drag out tests for weeks. Weeks that you do not have. They didn't give me my tissue samples or my blocks. The lab detected a mix-up in the registry. They will fix it tomorrow. What if the material belongs to another patient? Harrison stopped flipping through his phone. Sterling slowly took off his glasses. Who told you that? No one. I am trying to understand the delay. Do not fill your head with assumptions. Your results were double-checked multiple times. Then show me the pathology protocols. Eleanor, that is enough. Her husband intervened. You are torturing yourself. I want to know why I have to sell my father's legacy. Sterling opened the folder. Here is the invitation from the Foreign Center, the therapy schedule, and the invoice for the first phase. The wire transfer must be completed before the weekend. The documents looked convincing. The name of the clinic sounded different to me before, Eleanor observed. I spoke of a network of medical institutions. You will be treated at an affiliate branch. Who signed the invitation? The coordinator of the international department. Can his name be verified? Harrison slammed his hand against the armrest. Do you want to get cured, or do you want to interrogate every single person trying to save your life? Eleanor flinched and lowered her head. Her husband immediately sat down beside her. Forgive me, I am on edge. She let him hug her. Sterling took advantage of the pause. Sign the consent forms for the program tomorrow. Then the broker will reserve your spot. The money will be there when the factory is sold. Eleanor answered quietly. Chloe has scheduled the closing for Friday. The doctor shot a quick glance at Harrison. Then we will have plenty of time. Dr. Sterling, how much are you taking as a kickback for referring me there? He turned red. I am a physician, not a patient trafficker. Harrison assured me that the international broker had to be paid a finder's fee. She is just tired, the husband said. I will walk you out. The men stepped into the hallway. The door was left slightly ajar. She figured something out, Sterling whispered, and she isn't sick. They called the real patient in for tests. You promised me that wouldn't happen. I don't control the public healthcare system. Take her phone away and do not leave her alone. By Friday, it will all be over. I need my cut the minute the wire hits. You will get it. Eleanor remained motionless. The tiny voice recorder Sarah had hidden that morning in the lining of her purse was capturing everything. When Harrison returned, his wife had already closed her eyes. Where is my phone? I am holding on to it until tomorrow. You need peace and quiet. Her submissiveness appeased him. Throughout the night, Eleanor slept fitfully. Before dawn, her husband slipped out of the bedroom and locked the door from the outside. The click was soft, but she heard it. Eleanor approached the handle. The lock wouldn't budge. On the nightstand sat a glass of water and the medication. She didn't have her phone and they were on the second floor. Half an hour later, Harrison unlocked the door. He was already dressed. Why did you lock me in? You took a very heavy dose yesterday. I was afraid you might sleepwalk. Give me my phone back. After breakfast, I have to go to the factory. You are staying home today. Chloe will bring the paperwork here. I will sign the contract in my office in front of Sarah and the buyer's representatives. Harrison frowned. Why complicate things? Because the factory is mine. He looked at her for a few moments and then pulled out the phone. Fine, but today you are resting. On the screen was a message from Dr. Carter. Jessica has been admitted. Diagnosis confirmed. They are starting treatment immediately. Who is texting you? Harrison asked. More problems in the primary warehouse. He held out his hand. Let me see. Eleanor tilted the screen. The contact name appeared as Martha Work. The preview notification had already disappeared. I will call Mike Kowalski myself. No need, let them handle it without me. After breakfast, her husband locked himself in the home office. Eleanor went into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and called Sarah using an encrypted messaging app. He locked me in the bedroom and took away my phone. Can you leave the house right now? Yes. Do not provoke him. Chloe Preston will come by today. He wanted to bring her here, but I insisted on having the meeting on Friday at the factory. That sounds fine to me. The police report has been filed and the evidence submitted. They won't give us details on an active police investigation. Do not be alone with your husband after the signing. Jessica has been admitted to the hospital. I know her case is being handled through a different channel. Eleanor gripped the phone on Friday. I want them to be the ones to explain every step of their plan out loud. Ask simple questions. Who are they selling to? Where is the money going? Who recommended the international broker? Why are they in such a rush? I will sign the contract. Only the draft we agreed upon. The transfer of real estate requires filing the deed with the county recorder. Without that, the land and the buildings still belong to you. They cannot just improvise. Harrison might ask for a power of attorney. Do not give him one. Use the excuse that you want to sign everything personally. Sarah paused. The lab has analyzed the pill. It contains the declared active ingredient, but the prescribed dose is 3 times the normal starting limit. Combined with other medications, it can cause extreme lethargy, meaning they wanted to completely override my free will. Their intentions will be judged by the experts. Keep the medication and the prescription. At noon, her husband brought in the draft of the purchase agreement. The price remained a third of the market value, and the buyer gained the right to take possession of the facilities the moment the escrow deposit cleared. A specific clause obligated Eleanor to hand over the corporate seals, the licenses, and access to the company archives. Why do we have to hand over the records before going to the county recorder? She asked. To verify the state of the assets, due diligence is performed before closing. The buyer is risking a massive amount of money. I am the one risking everything. Harrison sat across from her. Yesterday you were willing to fight for your life, and today you are defending old walls. I want to secure my workers' severance pay. The money will come when we sell off the machinery. There is no obligation regarding that in the contract. We will add it as an addendum. Eleanor flipped to the last page. Where is the information for the overseas broker? There will be a separate wire authorization. The funds will go straight out when the buyer pays. Then on Friday, Dr. Sterling must also be present. Let him confirm that without the wire transfer, I won't be admitted. Her husband did not like the condition, but he could not refuse. Agreed. And have Chloe bring the original power of attorney from the managing member of Keystone Property Holdings. She will bring it. Harrison grabbed the draft. You have become extremely paranoid. A person with a terminal diagnosis has the right to think about what they will leave behind. He left without responding. A minute later, Eleanor overheard his conversation with Chloe. We are meeting at the factory on Friday. She is demanding Sterling be there and wants to see the original POA. She is not too far gone to back out. Prepare everything so Sarah doesn't have any excuse to delay the sale. After lunch, Harrison left to handle the bank authorizations. Eleanor waited 10 minutes, called an Uber, and went to her company. Martha locked the office door from the inside. Eleanor Harrison asked me to send him copies of all your email correspondence, and did you agree? I told him that without a written order from the owner, I am not authorized. The secretary placed the contract with Chloe's firm on the desk. The accountant found 2 payments for the land appraisal and the search for an investor. Both were authorized by Harrison. In the appendix, There is a report with photos of the factory, cadastral maps, and a profit projection for the future residential complex. The work began 3 months before your medical tests. Make copies and give them to Sarah. I already gave them to her. Martha, what is going on Friday? You will understand. Until then, not a word to anyone. Sarah arrived an hour later with the modified contract. On the surface, it looked identical to Harrison's. However, payment would only be dispersed after the deed was recorded and the source of funds had been verified. The handover of archives, corporate seals, keys, and machinery was prohibited before the legal process concluded. They will notice the changes, Eleanor said. That is why we will let them talk first. Then you will ask them to explain exactly how the payment will be executed. The signing will begin after reviewing the POA. And as for who will be in the adjacent room, I won't speak of that. It is enough for you to know that the meeting will be monitored. Sarah slipped her copy into her briefcase. After the meeting, do not go back home. I have booked a hotel room under an associate's name. You will pack up your things laterally and accompanied. Eleanor nodded. At dusk, she returned to her house. Harrison was waiting in the foyer. Where were you? At the factory. I wanted to say goodbye to the production floor before selling. I forbade you from going out alone. You cannot forbid me from doing anything. He took a step forward but stopped. Tomorrow is an important day. The meeting is the day after tomorrow on Friday. Chloe managed to move it up. The buyer is ready to sign everything tomorrow at 4. If we postpone it, the capital will be diverted to another project and you will lose your spot at the clinic. They were rushing to close the deal before the independent lab and the public hospital could officially link the swap test results to Sterling. All right, she said after a pause. Tomorrow at 4 in my office. Harrison smiled and hugged her. You won't regret this. Over his shoulder, Eleanor saw the doctor's familiar black folder resting on the hall table. Peeking out from it was the edge of a new medical report with the Apex Clinical Laboratories logo. The document already bore her last name. They had found the time to forge a replacement. Eleanor rested her cheek against her husband's shoulder and asked softly, So tomorrow it's all over, right? Yes, he answered. Tomorrow we begin a new chapter in our lives. She closed her eyes. Harrison still didn't know that for him, that life would begin exactly after the final signature. At 4:20, Eleanor walked into her office and immediately noticed there was one champagne flute too many. On the windowsill sat an ice bucket with champagne. Next to the folders were 3 identical pens. Harrison had arranged everything, as if in 20 minutes they were going to celebrate a massive family acquisition, rather than bidding farewell to her father's business. You're early, he said. I wanted to walk the floor before the meeting. You shouldn't have exerted yourself today. You only need the strength to sign. Eleanor took off her coat and hung it in the closet. Inside the lining of her purse, the recorder was running. There was another one hidden in the desk organizer. On her way to the office, she had stopped in front of the glass partition overlooking the primary warehouse. Mike Kowalski was arguing with an adjuster next to a new mold. 2 packaging workers were inspecting the tile designs. A young forklift driver was hastily restrapping a pallet that had come loose. Martha had caught up with her boss at the foot of the stairs. Everyone is at their station. Sarah Jenkins says the plan for the meeting remains unchanged. Did Harrison ask anything? He wanted to know who is in the small conference room. I told him they are auditing the archives. Eleanor gratefully touched her secretary's shoulder. After 4, do not let anyone leave before the end of the shift. The staff shouldn't find out what is happening through break room gossip. Understood. Only upon reaching the 2nd floor did Eleanor feel her knees tremble. The fear had returned. However, now it wasn't about a fabricated death. She was afraid of making a mistake and giving her husband the opportunity to hide behind his feigned concern. Sarah hadn't explained who was listening to the conversation from the adjacent room. She only asked her to ask the questions calmly and not alter the agreed-upon order. What time is Sterling coming today? Eleanor asked. Harrison looked away toward the window. I told him to go to the house tonight. He had an emergency surgery and his own schedule. He sent the medical report, the invitation, and the invoice from the medical broker. The excuse sounded plausible. Eleanor herself understood how ridiculous it would have been to see the oncologist sitting at the table, signing a commercial real estate contract. Her demand the day before had only served to test the conspirators. Sterling didn't show up, but he had given her husband a new folder with forged paperwork. Then you will handle the wire transfer after we record the deed. That requires a power of attorney. But first, I want to hear the entire process out loud. Harrison stepped closer and adjusted the collar of her blouse. Don't be afraid. In a few weeks, we will be at the clinic, and after the treatment, we will start a different life, where we will pick a place by the ocean. You will love it. Sarah entered the office. She wore a dark suit and held a leather briefcase. Has the buyer's representative arrived? The lawyer asked. She is coming up, Harrison replied. The managing director will join via video call if necessary. The original power of attorney is mandatory. Chloe is bringing it. A minute later, Chloe Preston appeared. Her blonde hair was styled in soft waves. A serene smile shone on her lips. She placed her driver's license and the notarized PUE from Keystone Property Holdings on the table in front of Sarah. I have been designated as the authorized signatory for the letter of intent, the escrow agreement, and the handover protocol. Sarah read every page, verified the information, and then asked, "Where is the corporate resolution from the sole member authorizing such a massive transaction?" "We will have it prepared when we go to the county recorder," Chloe answered. "Today, we are just cementing the intentions of the parties. The handover of keys and archives exceeds simple intentions." Harrison huffed in irritation. Sarah, the buyer, is putting up cash. They need to inspect the facilities. Due diligence is performed before signing, not after gaining access to the company seals and bank accounts. Eleanor sat at the head of the table. Let's not argue. I have trouble reading long documents. Explain it all to me verbally. In order, Chloe opened her folder. Following your signature, the company will wire the earnest money into escrow. That same day, we will receive the permits, supplier contracts, and keys to the offices. Then, the documents will be submitted to the deed registry. When will the rest of the funds arrive? After the title transfer clears. Where does a company this new get that much cash? The funding is provided by a private equity investor. What is his name? Chloe looked at Harrison. He does not wish to reveal his identity until the sale closes. Why? This individual is putting together a massive urban development project and is worried about competitors. So, you are going to shut down the factory. Manufacturing is operating at a loss, Harrison cut in. The land can be put to better use. Eleanor turned to her husband. Just yesterday, you promised to pay severance to the employees. They will be paid when we sell the machinery. There is no such obligation anywhere in the documents. We will add it in an addendum. And who is going to sign it if Keystone Property Holdings flips the parcel immediately to the actual real estate developer? Chloe froze with the folder open. Where did you get the idea that there will be a flip? Your firm's consulting report already contains a blueprint for a condo complex and a profit projection. The factory paid for those services 2 months ago. Harrison glared sharply at his mistress. You left the report in accounting. You processed the payment. She shot back. I sent the documents to the financial department address you gave me. Sarah placed the copies of the wire transfers on the desk. This indicates that preparations began long before Eleanor was ever diagnosed with any illness. We were evaluating potential options, Harrison said. There is nothing illegal about that. Then why was the owner completely unaware? I wanted to bring you a ready-made solution. Eleanor closed her eyes, faking a dizzy spell. Okay, let's say I accept such a low price. What happens to the money? Her husband pushed the wire authorization form toward her. A portion will go to the medical broker. I will manage the rest during your treatment. With what legal authority are you going to sign that? He pulled out a separate document. Sarah read it and looked up. This grants the right to control all bank accounts, sell personal and real property, collect documents, and delegate authority. Harrison will be able to take all remaining assets without requesting further permission from his wife. Eleanor's cognitive capacity could decline rapidly, he replied. Sterling warned me her condition could worsen. There is no declaration of legal incompetence in the medical reports. We are just being cautious. Then restrict the power of attorney exclusively to paying invoices confirmed by the clinic. Harrison shook his head. There will be ancillary expenses overseas. I am not going to run around looking for a notary every time something comes up. Eleanor picked up the document. You are asking me to sign over everything that's left of the factory. I am asking you to let me save you from what? From bureaucracy? From delays? From my habit of questioning every move, Chloe interrupted. The power of attorney can be signed later. Right now, the buyer is waiting for a decision. And what is the champagne for? Eleanor asked. Harrison glanced sideways at the ice bucket. I wanted to celebrate the beginning of your recovery. Since there's no wire transfer required before signing, I am confident everything will go smoothly. Are you confident in the buyer or in my obedience? Chloe shut her folder. I understand emotions are running high, but the investor isn't going to wait forever. Tomorrow their people will begin surveying the land. Only topographical surveys before the deed is recorded. And when are you going to announce to the workers that the factory is being demolished? Harrison answered for her. After the funds clear, otherwise they will raise hell. The union will call the press and the developer will back out. So you had both decided to hide the sale until the moment the employees could no longer do anything about it. We decided not to destroy your last hope because of other people's panic, her husband said. Sarah noted his words in the margins of the contract. No, Eleanor said. I need to understand the medical wire transfer. What organization is receiving the money? Harrison named the LLC and showed her the routing number. Who owns it? The overseas coordinator. His name? I don't know it. Who found the broker? Sterling recommended him to us. Chloe let out a sarcastic chuckle. Don't pin the whole thing on the doctor. You sent the banking details yourself. Harrison turned on her. After your conversation with the investor's rep, the investor is strictly real estate. He has absolutely nothing to do with the medical treatment. So the two of you discussed my money behind my back? Eleanor inquired. Chloe fell silent. Harrison leaned in forward as Eleanor, stop. You are sick, terrified, and you are clinging to trivialities. Sign the contract. I will take care of the rest. Yesterday you locked me in the bedroom so I wouldn't fall over after taking those pills. You took my phone so no one would bother me. Then you demanded a general power of attorney because I love you. His final words rang out too loudly. Behind the glass partition, Martha looked up but did not enter the office. Eleanor opened her purse and pulled out the results from the public hospital. I do not have cancer. Harrison was slow to react. Chloe turned pale and slowly put down her pen. What did you say? Her husband asked. Steel City Memorial found absolutely no tumor. The biopsy tracking number belongs to Jessica Miller. She was told she was in the clear, and you shoved her terminal diagnosis onto me. It is a lab error. No, errors are not corrected by drafting fake reports, backdated to cover your tracks. Eleanor slammed a copy of the document from the black folder onto the desk. Yesterday, this was sitting in our foyer. It bears my last name, a different sample number, and an old date. You tried to cover your tracks after my official request. Chloe whipped her head toward Harrison. You told me Sterling had handled everything with zero risk. Shut up. You swore the actual patient was long gone and no one would ever investigate. Harrison jumped to his feet. You knew the whole plan. Your firm was going to buy the parcel and flip it to the developer. You knew about the factory and the fake treatment. You only told me about using another patient's records later, when we were already past the point of no return. Liar. I have your text messages saved. Chloe reached for her phone. Harrison grabbed the device first and smashed it against the floor. The door opened. Several Pittsburgh police officers walked into the office. Leading them was Detective James Callahan, a 45-year-old man with close-cropped dark hair. He flashed his badge and ordered everyone to step away from the documents, cell phones, and computers. "This is a private family matter," Harrison yelled. Callahan ignored his accusation. "You will give your official statements down at the precinct. For now, comply with the officer's orders." A tech retrieved the smashed cell phone. Another officer took a position at the door. Chloe pointed at Harrison. "All the messages are on my device. He was sending me the figures, the broker's routing numbers, and promised me my cut after flipping the land. You registered the shell company under your aunt's name yourself." Harrison screamed at her at your own request, and you took a retainer fee from the factory. You signed off on the payment. Their alliance had crumbled in a matter of minutes. Just that morning, they believed they would be splitting millions and starting a new life. Now, each was desperately trying to save themselves at the expense of the other. Eleanor looked at the husband with whom she had shared 15 years of her life. She used to know that he frowned when he was cold, that he searched for his glasses even when they were right in front of him, and that he always left his coffee half-finished next to his laptop. Now standing before her was a man who had decided to destroy her without firing a single shot. He had only needed someone else's lab results, a doctor's signature, and the fear of death. Detective Callahan asked, "Did you end up signing any documents?" "No," Eleanor replied. "We didn't get that far. Did they give you any medication?" She showed him the sealed blister packs, the prescriptions, and the reports from the independent lab. "My husband and the doctor brought me the pills. Harrison forced me to take double the prescribed dose, took away my phone, and locked me in the bedroom." "Lies!" he shouted. "I was taking care of you." Eleanor turned to him. "Taking care of me doesn't require selling the company at a third of its value, handing over the keys before the deed is recorded, or wiring the money to an offshore LLC. There is no deal. That means there is no crime," he shot back. Sarah replied calmly. "The legal classification of the charges is not decided by anyone in this room." The officers began cataloging the documents and electronic devices. There was movement in the hallway, but Callahan raised his hand and the officer stayed outside. Later, Eleanor would understand that this meeting was only one part of the sting operation. Nobody intended to gather all the suspects in her office just for a dramatic finale. Each was being investigated regarding the location of documents, digital footprints, and individuals capable of corroborating every fact. At that moment, they told her nothing about the clinic. Detective Callahan named no names. He didn't summarize what his colleagues had uncovered, nor did he promise swift results. He only wanted to know where the original prescriptions were, who had access to her home office, and how she had obtained the copy of the new forged diagnosis. Suddenly, Harrison slumped into his chair. "Eleanor, tell them we were just discussing the sale. Withdraw the complaint. I will return the money for the consulting reports, and you can reimburse Jessica for the 2 months of treatment." He looked away. "I didn't know the doctor was going to use a real diagnosis." Chloe burst out laughing. "You were the one looking for a patient with no relatives. Sterling told you she only had a son." "Shut up. I have a voicemail where he asks if she can be deleted from the hospital's computer system." Harrison lunged at her, but an officer intercepted him and ordered him to sit down. Eleanor took off her wedding ring. The metal left a pale indentation on her finger. She placed the ring next to the 3 pens. "Look at me, Harrison." He raised his head. "Why did you always put the factory above me? I trusted you with the finances, a directorship, and access to the accounts, but the final word was always yours. Every foreman just saw me as the owner's husband. So you decided to steal the company from me. I wanted what I deserved." "What exactly?" "My father bought the land. The workers kept production alive. The machines generated the revenue. You even paid for the setup of your own fraud using the Facto's accounts. I was your family. You were. And you had my complete trust. You traded it for a piece of land that will never be yours." They asked Eleanor to step into the adjacent room to give her statement. Sarah sat beside her. Through the glass partition, they could see Harrison trying to convince the detective of something while Chloe answered another officer's questions. "You held up well," Sarah said. "As long as Jessica is in the hospital, it isn't a total victory. They have already started her treatment. It is too late. The doctors haven't given up hope yet. Late that evening, Eleanor went to a hotel. She had no intention of returning to her house. Sarah brought her clothes they had packed in advance and reminded her that she would collect the rest of her belongings later in the presence of witnesses. Once alone, Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed. Just that morning, that place had been called her family home. Her clothes were still in the closet. The mugs they had picked out together were still in the kitchen. Harrison's book with a dog-eared page was still on the nightstand. The betrayal hadn't erased those objects, but it had stripped them of all meaning. The next day, she went to visit Jessica. The woman was lying in a hospital bed by the window. Tyler was sitting next to her doing his math homework. "The doctors have started the treatment," Jessica said. "They make no promises, but there is a chance." Tyler looked up from his notebook. "My mom is going to live." Jessica closed her eyes for a second, then took her son's hand. "The doctors are doing everything they can." Eleanor wasn't going to make promises no one could keep. "Your mother ended up in the hands of great specialists in time, right now. She needs to heal and you need to not skip school, and be here when they let you visit her." "I can stay with a neighbor," the boy said very seriously, "but the hospital is really far. We will help you with transportation," Eleanor replied. Jessica was about to protest, but her son, for the first time during the entire visit, relaxed his shoulders slightly. "I will cover whatever expenses your public insurance doesn't," Eleanor added. "You do not owe me anything. They used your illness against me. That was other people, I know. Let me help you with the medications, transportation, and a place close by for Tyler to stay while you are here." Jessica looked at her closely, but without pity, without feeling sorry for her. "Sarah will draft it all in writing, so you don't have to depend on anyone. Then I accept." 4 months passed. The factory did not stop for a single day. Eleanor fired Harrison from his position, revoked his banking authority, and ordered an internal audit. The review uncovered the payments to Chloe's firm, the fictitious consulting fees, and the groundwork for flipping the land. They turned all the material over via official subpoenas regarding the actions taken against Sterling. Eleanor only learned of them through documents officially served through legal channels. Her role was investigated separately. They tracked her medical history, the lab logs, the use of the corporate seals, the prescriptions, and the wire transfers. He could no longer hide behind a simple marital property dispute. Through his defense attorney, Harrison offered to sign an uncontested divorce without demanding alimony if his wife softened her testimony. Sarah responded that the facts were not bargaining chips. In the fall, the divorce decree was issued. Walking out of the county courthouse, Harrison caught up with Eleanor in the hallway. "Did it really have to end like this? You were the one who started this. I never wanted to hurt you physically. You shoved a terminal diagnosis onto me, you tried to steal my factory, and you forced me to take heavy narcotics. What do you call that? Chloe sold me out. She did to me exactly what you did to me. I loved you. Love doesn't forge medical records." He fell silent. "Will you ever forgive me? I never want to see you again in my life. Maybe someday that will turn into forgiveness." Eleanor walked away without waiting for a response. In the winter, Jessica finished her primary round of treatment. The scans showed improvement. One day, she visited the factory with Tyler. Mike Kowalski let the boy carve a small initial into one of the ceramic tiles before it went into the kiln. "The letter is going to come out crooked," the floor manager warned him. "But it will be mine," the boy answered. In the spring, Eleanor sold only the abandoned section of the parcel to the commercial developer. She closed the deal after an independent appraisal and after openly discussing it with the floor managers. With the proceeds, she paid for a new assembly line, repaired the ventilation system, and purchased premium private health insurance for the workers. The core of the manufacturing complex remained exactly where it was. On the day the new machinery was inaugurated, Martha buzzed in over the intercom. "Eleanor, Jessica is waiting for you at the front desk." The guests walked in carrying a small package. Inside was a ceramic tile turned into a coaster featuring a crooked, uneven letter stamped into the side. "It is for you," Tyler said, "so that when you drink coffee, you remember that the scary papers need to be double-checked, too." Eleanor burst out laughing and placed the gift next to the photo of her father. When they left, she walked over to the window. In the courtyard, the main gates were opening. A delivery truck pulled onto the premises. The loaders directed the driver where to go. On her desk rested the divorce decree. Next to it, the letter from Jessica's hospital showing the clean results of her latest scan. Eleanor filed the first document in the bottom drawer, left the second one in front of her, poured some tea, and rested her mug on Tyler's gift. "Lesson complete," she said softly. Beyond the wall, the new assembly line roared to life. Life wasn't starting from zero. It was continuing from the exact point where they had tried to cut it short with lies. And now, every new day belonged only to her.